He had it all: money, power, the perfect life, until the moment he saw her at his best friend's sister's wedding. Maya wasn't supposed to be there. She wasn't the kind of woman he would even notice. But when their eyes met across the room, everything changed. If you're ready to hear the whole story, click subscribe and let me know in the comments where you're watching from. Because tomorrow, I will be giving you another story just as crazy as this one. And you don't want to miss it. Now let's get into it. The wedding was everything Chloe had dreamed of. Elegant, glamorous, the kind of wedding that made you feel like you were walking through a fairy tale. Guests in expensive suits and gowns mingled in the ballroom, sipping champagne and exchanging smiles. The scent of roses filled the air, and the soft notes of a string quartet played in the background. Everything was perfect, but Alexander felt out of place. He was used to these kinds of events, but tonight it felt different. There was something about the celebration, the glitz and the glamour, that felt like an empty shell. His wealth, his achievements, none of it mattered when he couldn't remember the last time he felt truly alive. He took a sip of his champagne, scanning the room, but his thoughts drifted. His life was full of meetings, deals, and expectations. He had everything anyone could want, but inside he felt hollow. Even his best friend, Evan, seemed to have a life filled with more meaning, something Alexander couldn't quite place. He'd been invited to this wedding to support Evan, but honestly, he wasn't sure why he'd even come. Then he saw her. Across the room, Maya stood by the windows, gazing out at the city lights. Her dress was simple but stunning. Not the kind of showy dress you'd expect at a wedding like this, but the kind that commanded attention without trying. Her hair fell in loose waves around her shoulders, and for a moment, Alexander couldn't breathe. She wasn't what he expected. She wasn't anything like the women he usually dated. But there was something about her presence, something magnetic. What was it about her that made him feel like he had to know her? Was it the way she carried herself? Or was there something deeper beneath the surface? Maya adjusted her dress, feeling the weight of the room press in on her. Weddings were beautiful, yes, but they were also a reminder of everything she didn't have. Love, partnership, family. The people around her didn't know what it was like to work twice as hard just to be seen, to prove you belonged in a space that was never built for you. But here she was because Chloe had asked her to be there. It wasn't the first time Maya had attended a lavish event like this, but it still felt just as strange every time. The stares, the whispers, it was all too familiar. But she wasn't going to let it ruin her night. Not tonight. Not for Chloe. She took a deep breath and looked around the room, her gaze landing on Alexander. He stood alone near the bar, his face unreadable, his posture stiff. He wasn't part of the crowd of laughter and lively conversations. He seemed distant, as if the whole thing bored him. And yet he was intriguing. Something about him caught her attention, but she quickly pushed the thought away. This wasn't the time. Not the place. She wasn't here to meet someone, especially not someone like him. Was she really going to let herself be drawn to him? Or was she simply another face in a crowd of men who never saw her for who she truly was? As she turned to make her way to the bar, she caught his eyes again. This time he was looking right at her. There was no denying it. He was drawn to her. "Excuse me," Alexander said, his voice smooth but with a hint of curiosity. He stepped closer, but not too close. "I couldn't help but notice you standing here. Mind if I join you?" She raised an eyebrow, taken aback by his forwardness. She wasn't sure what to make of him. Tall, handsome in an effortless way, and dressed to the nines. But something about him felt distant. She hesitated, then shrugged, letting the quiet tension between them linger. Sure, why not? What was it about this man, so different from the ones she was used to, that made her feel both cautious and curious? He smiled as he joined her, but there was something behind his eyes. He wasn't like the other men she had met. He didn't seem like the type to make small talk just for the sake of it. There was an honesty to him that felt both refreshing and intimidating. "I'm Alexander," he said, extending his hand. "Nice to meet you." "Maya," she replied, shaking his hand lightly. "What brings you to this wedding?" He took a small sip from his drink. I'm here for my best friend Evan. His sister's wedding. He paused, looking around the room before returning his gaze to her. It's a bit overwhelming, isn't it? Maya chuckled, feeling the walls she'd put up start to crack. It's definitely a lot to take in. But it's Chloe's big day, so I guess that's all that matters. Yeah, he said, his smile turning into something warmer. I suppose so. There was an awkward silence, but it wasn't uncomfortable. It felt like they both didn't know quite what to say next, yet somehow they were both intrigued. What would happen next between them? Would the night end like any other wedding? Or would this be the start of something neither of them expected? As the music shifted, the guests began to move toward the dance floor. But Maya didn't feel the pull to join them. She didn't come here for the glitz. She came for Chloe. And yet, as Alexander's gaze lingered on her, she found herself wondering if maybe, just maybe, there was something more to this night than she'd expected. Maya glanced at her watch, feeling the weight of the evening pressing in. Chloe had made sure to introduce her to every single guest at the wedding, most of whom Maya hadn't even met before. She loved her friend, but sometimes the spotlight felt too bright. The high society circles she was now part of felt worlds away from the life she was used to. She had just taken another sip of wine when she saw Alexander again, this time across the room. He was speaking with a group of men, his back to her, but his presence was unmistakable. It was like he was magnetic. She had to admit, there was something about him that kept drawing her in. A small part of her wanted to turn away, but the other part of her, the part that rarely got a chance to be curious, the part that didn't just write people off based on the status they carried, wanted to know more. So she watched. What was it about Alexander that made her feel both intrigued and cautious? Was it just the wealth and power, or something deeper? It wasn't until the music changed again, a slow, romantic ballad playing in the background, that Maya felt a hand on her shoulder. She turned around, startled. It was Alexander. You said you didn't come here to dance, he said, his voice gentle but firm. I'm offering you a chance to prove me wrong. She laughed lightly, a little nervous, a little unsure. You know, I think I might just take you up on that. They walked toward the dance floor, Maya's heart racing with the strange feeling that maybe, just maybe, this wasn't as random as it seemed. Could this unexpected connection lead to something more? Or was it just the kind of fleeting moment that weddings often created? Alexander led her onto the dance floor, his hand finding the small of her back. For a moment, she stiffened. She wasn't used to this kind of intimacy, even with someone as effortlessly confident as him. But his touch was light, respectful, and his posture, completely at ease. It made her relax. The song was slow, soft, and the world seemed to shrink around them. She could feel his presence, feel the warmth of his hand against her back, but she kept her gaze steady ahead, not daring to make eye contact just yet. I'm surprised you're dancing, Maya said, trying to break the tension. You don't seem like the type to just jump into these kinds of things. Alexander chuckled. I'm not, usually, but there's something about this moment. He paused, looking at her for the first time since they stepped onto the dance floor. Something about you. Was it really her he was interested in, or was it just the setting, the night, the allure of something he couldn't name? Maya's heart skipped a beat. She wanted to laugh it off, to deflect the sudden heat building between them, but she didn't. There was something about the way he said it, the way his eyes met hers with such sincerity, that kept her rooted in place. Don't get ahead of yourself, she said, her voice softer than she intended. I'm not the kind of girl who fits in with this crowd. Funny, he said, his lips curving into a smile. I was thinking the exact same thing about myself. She raised an eyebrow. You fit in perfectly with this crowd. Maybe on the outside, he said, his voice low, but not on the inside. There was something in his words that felt like a confession, something that hinted at the loneliness that hovered behind his polished exterior. For a moment, Maya saw the mask slip, just a little. What was he hiding? And why did he feel the need to reveal this side of himself to her, of all people? They moved in time with the music, their bodies instinctively matching each step, yet neither of them seemed in a rush. It was almost as if the world outside this ballroom didn't matter anymore. The guests, the champagne, the noise, they all faded into the background, leaving just the two of them. The song ended too soon, and the crowd around them applauded for the newlyweds. But Maya and Alexander didn't move right away. For a brief moment, they stayed in place, their hands still lightly clasped, lingering in the shared silence. Alexander cleared his throat, his usual confident self returning. "I guess I should have warned you," he said, offering her a small smile. "I don't dance much, but I'm glad I did tonight." Maya returned his smile, feeling something shift in the air between them. "I guess I'm glad too." She wanted to leave it at that, but there was something about the way he looked at her that made her want to say more. "You don't seem like the kind of guy who opens up to just anyone." He looked down at their feet for a moment, then back up at her. "Maybe not, but you're different." Was he just flattering her? Or was there a deeper connection that neither of them could ignore? Before Maya could respond, Chloe came rushing over, pulling Maya away from Alexander with a big grin. "Come on, girl. Time for a drink. You've been looking like you need one." Maya chuckled, her eyes briefly meeting Alexander's before she was pulled away into the crowd. But as she walked away, she couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning of something unexpected. The night moved on, but for Maya the world felt different. The echo of Alexander's gaze lingered with her as she laughed and chatted with Chloe and the other guests. She could feel his eyes on her, even when they weren't directly looking at each other. It was strange, unsettling, and yet exciting. But she told herself to keep her distance. This wasn't her world. She wasn't the type of woman who fell for rich, polished, perfect men. Men like Alexander lived lives that had been scripted for them, while she was still writing hers. She didn't belong in his circle, and he didn't belong in hers. Why was she letting herself feel this way? She didn't know him. She barely knew anything about him. Maya was sitting at a table, sipping her drink when Chloe returned, her face glowing with excitement. "Come on, Maya. Stop being so serious. You're the only one here who isn't having fun." Maya forced a smile. "I'm having fun." Chloe raised an eyebrow. "Is that why you keep glancing over at Alexander? He's been watching you all night. You two should dance again." Maya's smile faltered. She hadn't realized she'd been so obvious. "I'm fine. Just taking a break." Chloe didn't press her. "If you say so, but I think you two would make a good pair. You've got that spark." Maya nodded, but the weight of Chloe's words pressed down on her. She didn't need to hear it. She knew what Chloe meant. But the more she thought about it, the more the thought lingered. What if Chloe was right? What if there was more to this strange pull between them? Was she really going to ignore the connection between them? Or was this just a fleeting moment she should walk away from? Meanwhile, Alexander was standing by the bar, nursing his drink. He had been trying to shake the feeling of Maya's eyes on him all night. He couldn't explain why, but there was something about her that felt like a breath of fresh air in a room full of stale conversations. Maya didn't seem to care about his status, didn't care about the things other women found fascinating about him, his wealth, his connections, his business. She just saw him, and that was different. But he didn't belong in her world either. He knew that. His life was full of obligations, deals, and expectations, things that were alien to her. She deserved someone who could offer her stability, someone who didn't carry the weight of an entire empire on his shoulders. He told himself he shouldn't even be thinking about her. He had come here for his best friend's wedding, not to get caught up in a woman who didn't fit into his world. But why couldn't he stop thinking about her? Why did she feel different from the rest? As the night wore on, the music grew louder, the guests grew more relaxed, and the walls that separated him from Maya seemed to be closing in. Finally, he couldn't stand it anymore. He walked over to where she was sitting, her attention fixed on her phone, tapping away at a message. "Maya," he said, his voice calm but with a hint of something more. She looked up, startled at first, then quickly masked her surprise with a smile. "Hey, Alexander. Everything okay?" "Yeah, just wanted to check on you," he said, his hand resting on the back of the chair next to her. "I know you're probably tired of the same wedding chatter." Want to get some air? Maya hesitated. She was torn between walking away and getting some space, or sticking around to continue the strange connection that had already formed between them. But a part of her felt like she shouldn't let this go. Not yet. Sure, she said finally, standing up and brushing down her dress. I could use a break. Willing to step outside her comfort zone, even if it meant getting closer to him, they stepped outside the ballroom into the cool night air. The stars were dim behind the city lights, but still visible above them, and a soft breeze brushed against her skin. Maya took a deep breath, feeling a bit of the tension ease out of her shoulders. I didn't think you were the type to sneak away from your own party, she joked, trying to lighten the mood. Alexander chuckled. I'm not, but there's something about the quiet. It makes you think. They stood there for a moment, side by side, not speaking. The sounds of the wedding, the chatter, the clinking of glasses inside, felt miles away. Maya could feel the space between them closing, the air charged with unspoken words. I don't know why I keep thinking about you tonight, Alexander said, his voice low, almost to himself. Maya turned to look at him, her heart racing. Why? Because you're different. You're not like the others, he replied, his eyes meeting hers, intense and open. And I can't seem to let it go. She swallowed, her pulse quickening. This was exactly what she was trying to avoid. This kind of connection. But there was something about him, his vulnerability, his honesty, that made it hard to resist. I'm not the kind of woman you need in your life, she said quietly. I'm not the kind of woman who fits in here. Alexander took a step closer, his gaze steady. Who says I need someone who fits in? Maybe I need someone who doesn't. The words hung between them, as heavy as the cool air. Maya felt a tug in her chest, but she held her ground. I'm not ready for this, she said, finally breaking the silence. You're not what I was expecting. She turned away, but Alexander's hand gently grabbed her arm, pulling her back around. I don't want you to be ready for this, he said softly. I just want you to see me. Was this the beginning of something neither of them could control? Or was it already too late to walk away? But Maya didn't have an answer. She couldn't. The pull was undeniable. But so was the fear that the distance between them, their different worlds, would pull them apart. Was Chloe right? Could this connection be inevitable? Maya forced a smile, but she wasn't sure how to respond. She didn't want to start a conversation about what had happened last night. Not in front of Chloe. But the way Alexander was looking at her made it hard to ignore. Instead, she excused herself, stepping out onto the small balcony to catch her breath. The last thing she needed was to be pushed into something she wasn't ready for. But Alexander followed her. He stood there for a moment, leaning against the balcony railing, watching her. I didn't mean to make you uncomfortable yesterday, he said quietly. But I couldn't stop thinking about you, Maya. Maya didn't turn around. She stared out at the view, the city stretching out before her, as if it could offer her the answers she needed. I told you, I'm not the right person for you. You keep saying that, Alexander said, his voice a little softer now. But I don't buy it. There's something here, something real. She shook her head, her chest tightening. I don't belong in your world. You've got everything: success, money, influence. And I'm just me. I can't fit into that, and I don't want to try. Alexander stepped closer, his presence almost overwhelming in the quiet space. I never asked you to fit into it. I just want you to be yourself. Could he be serious? Was he truly asking her to let go of her doubts and see where this could go? For a moment, Maya just stood there, feeling a whirlwind of emotions rush through her. She wanted to tell him it was too late, that she couldn't risk it. She wanted to run from this, to keep her heart protected. But there was something in his words, something in the way he looked at her, that made her pause. I don't know how to trust this, she admitted, finally turning to face him. I've never been good at letting myself trust people. I know it's hard, he said quietly, his gaze steady. But I'm not asking you to trust everything right now. Just trust me, Maya. Just this once. She felt her breath catch in her throat. For a moment, she considered walking away, running from the vulnerability he was asking of her. But there was something in his eyes, something that made her believe he wasn't like the others. Maybe, just maybe, he was worth taking a chance on. Was this the leap of faith she'd been avoiding? Could she really let herself trust someone again? Before Maya could answer, Chloe called out from the living room, breaking the moment between them. "Hey, you two. We're all hanging out in here. What's going on out there?" Maya glanced back at Alexander. He smiled, a soft, understanding smile. "Let's go back inside. You don't have to answer right now." She nodded, feeling the weight of the choice still pressing on her chest. But she wasn't ready to make any decisions. Not yet. They returned to the living room, where the conversation picked up again, but something had shifted. Maya could feel the pull between her and Alexander. Stronger now, undeniable. But she wasn't sure if she was ready to step into that unknown. It had been a week since the wedding. A week since Maya and Alexander's quiet conversation on the balcony. And since the world seemed to shift for Maya in ways she couldn't quite understand. She had been avoiding him, intentionally keeping her distance, but every time her phone buzzed with his name, it felt like a knot twisted in her stomach. She was at work when it happened, an ordinary Thursday or so she thought. Maya was standing in the small coffee shop in the corner of the office building, waiting for her order. She needed something to wake her up, to distract her from the gnawing feeling in her chest that had been there ever since she walked away from Alexander. Her phone vibrated in her pocket. She pulled it out, not expecting much. It was a text from him. "We need to talk." Maya's stomach dropped. She stared at the message for a long moment, trying to decide if she should respond. She'd been so careful to keep her distance, not to let him pull her back into something she wasn't ready for. But there was a part of her that wanted to know what he had to say. A part of her that felt like this was her moment to face it, whatever it was. Why did a simple text feel like an avalanche of emotions? What was Alexander really asking for? She pressed her thumb against the screen, typing out a quick response. What's there to talk about? She almost hit send before second-guessing herself. She took a deep breath, then typed, "I'm not sure this is a good idea." The response came almost immediately. "I need you to hear me out, Maya. Please." She could feel her resolve starting to crack. The truth was, a part of her wanted to hear him out, even if it meant facing whatever this was between them. With a sigh, she slipped her phone back into her pocket, took a deep breath, and walked back to her desk. She knew this was coming, knew it was inevitable. She had tried to ignore it, but she couldn't escape the pull any longer. What would Alexander say? Would it change everything? Or was this the beginning of the end? Later that evening, Maya agreed to meet him. The plan was simple, just a quick conversation over coffee. She told herself it would be casual, easy. But she knew deep down it wasn't going to be. She arrived at the small coffee shop, her heart beating louder than she cared to admit. The warm scent of roasted beans filled the air, mingling with the sound of soft jazz music in the background. When she saw Alexander sitting at a corner table, her breath hitched. He stood when he saw her, a soft smile playing at the corners of his lips, but Maya could see the tension in his eyes. The things left unsaid were hanging heavy between them, waiting to be addressed. "Hey," Maya said, her voice soft. She felt a little awkward, but she forced a smile. "How've you been?" "Busy," Alexander replied, his gaze never leaving hers. He motioned to the seat across from him. "Thanks for meeting me." Maya sat down, her hands folded on the table. She could feel the weight of the silence between them, both of them uncertain of how to start this conversation. Finally, Alexander spoke, his voice steady but earnest. "Maya, I know I probably came on too strong after the wedding," he said, his words slow and careful. "I don't want to make you uncomfortable, but I can't stop thinking about you." Maya's heart skipped a beat. The last thing she expected was for him to lay it all out like that, so directly. But here it was, the truth of it all, hanging in the air between them. Was he really saying what she thought he was saying? And if so, what did it mean for her? "I don't want you to feel like I'm pushing you into something," Alexander continued. I just can't pretend like I'm not feeling something for you, Maya. It's more than just a passing attraction. I haven't felt like this in a long time. Maya could feel her throat tighten. The words she wanted to say stuck somewhere between her chest and her mouth. She had tried to tell herself that this was nothing, just a momentary connection that wasn't worth pursuing. But hearing him say this so openly was making her second-guess everything. "I don't know what you want from me, Alexander," she said, her voice a little more strained than she intended. "I'm not sure I can offer you what you're looking for." "I'm not asking you for anything," he replied quickly. "I just want to see where this could go. I want to try." Maya stared at him, feeling a mix of confusion and fear. Was this really happening? Was she really considering this? She had never been the type to take risks like this, to open herself up to the kind of vulnerability that Alexander was asking for. Was it fear holding her back? Or something else? What would it take for her to let go of her doubts? "I'm scared," she whispered, the words slipping out before she could stop them. "I'm scared that I'll get hurt, that you'll walk away, just like everyone else." Alexander's expression softened, and for the first time, she saw the vulnerability in his eyes. "Maya, I'm not going anywhere." But even as he said those words, something in her heart told her it was too soon to believe him. Too soon to believe in anything he was offering. Could she really trust him? Or would she end up regretting it? Maya stood up suddenly, her emotions rising faster than she could handle. "I don't know what to do with this," she said, her voice breaking. "I don't know what this is." She couldn't stay any longer, not like this. She needed to get away, to clear her head. "Wait!" Alexander called after her. But she was already out the door. Maya didn't answer Alexander's calls the next day, or the next. She needed space. She needed time to think. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw him. His face full of sincerity. His words pulling at her heart in ways she couldn't explain. But she was scared. She had been scared before, and she didn't want to make the same mistake again. She spent the next few days distracting herself with work. The constant buzz of emails and the hum of office conversations kept her mind occupied. But no matter how busy she got, there was always a moment when her thoughts drifted back to Alexander. The way his voice had cracked when he told her he wasn't going anywhere. The way his eyes looked at her like she was the only person in the room. Why couldn't she stop thinking about him? Was she ready to let him in? Or was this her fear talking? It was a Saturday afternoon when she finally relented. Her phone buzzed again, this time with a text from Chloe. "Maya, I think you need to talk to him. He's been waiting for you to call. I'm worried." Chloe's words hit Maya harder than she expected. She hadn't realized that Alexander had been waiting, hoping for a response. She hadn't realized that by staying away, she had left him hanging, vulnerable in his own way. Maya stared at the text, her fingers trembling slightly as she typed a response. "I'm not sure what to say." The reply came almost immediately. "You don't have to say much. Just hear him out. You owe it to yourself." Maya set the phone down, staring out the window. The sun was setting, casting a warm golden glow over the city. She had avoided this moment long enough. She couldn't keep running. If she was going to do this, she had to face it head-on. Was she ready to face her fears? Or would this be the moment she walked away forever? She didn't know what to expect when she met him. She didn't know what would happen when she finally sat down across from him and listened to whatever he had to say. But she knew one thing. She couldn't keep avoiding it. She couldn't keep letting the fear control her. Maya found herself walking into the coffee shop again, the same one where they'd talked just days earlier. She didn't know why she chose this place, but something about it felt familiar. Safe even, as if this was where they could finally face the truth. He was already there, sitting at a corner table, looking just as she remembered. The same calm, collected expression, but with a hint of something different in his eyes. Vulnerability, maybe, or just uncertainty. He looked up as she approached, standing as if he had been waiting for her arrival. Why did it feel like everything had changed? Was this still the same conversation? "Maya," Alexander said softly, his voice steady but carrying an edge of hope. "I'm glad you came." She nodded, unsure of what to say, and sat down across from him. She could feel the tension in the air, the space between them thick with unspoken words. I'm sorry I didn't reach out sooner, she said quietly, trying to break the silence. I didn't know how to handle everything. I didn't know what you wanted from me. I don't want anything you're not ready to give, Alexander replied, his gaze never wavering from hers. I just wanted you to know that I'm serious about this. About us. I'm not here to pressure you, Maya. I just want you to know that I'm not going anywhere. Maya took a deep breath, trying to steady her racing heart. She couldn't remember the last time she felt this vulnerable. It was like every wall she had built around herself was slowly crumbling, and she wasn't sure if she was ready for it. Was this what she had been running from? Was it worth the risk to open up? You keep saying that, Maya said, her voice shaking slightly. But how can I trust you? How can I trust that you won't walk away like everyone else? Alexander leaned in, his expression softening. Because I don't want to walk away, Maya. I've been waiting for someone like you for a long time, and I'm not going to let fear dictate my actions anymore. I'm here. I'm real. And I want to prove that to you. His words hit her like a wave, crashing over everything she had been holding on to. She wanted to pull back, to keep herself safe, but the pull between them was undeniable. She felt herself drawn in, against her better judgment, against every instinct that told her to protect her heart. But this wasn't about protecting herself anymore. This was about giving in to something real. Could this be the moment she finally let go? Was it too late to trust him? I don't know if I'm ready for this, Maya admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. But I can't keep pretending like I don't feel something for you. I don't know what it is, but it's there. Alexander smiled, a genuine, relieved smile. That's all I need, Maya. Just give me a chance. I won't let you down. For the first time in days, Maya felt like she could breathe again. The weight on her chest lifted just a little. She wasn't sure where this was going or what would come of it. But she knew one thing for sure. She wasn't walking away anymore. The days after their conversation passed in a blur, but Maya felt like she was finally breathing again. She'd opened herself up to Alexander in a way she never thought she would, and while she still had doubts, there was something in her chest that told her this was different. She could feel the shift. Something between them had changed, and though it terrified her, it felt right. But deep down, Maya knew this wasn't just about her fear anymore. There was something she had to face, something she had been avoiding her whole life. The fear of being hurt, of being vulnerable, was one thing, but this felt different. It was deeper, more complicated. She wasn't sure if she was ready for it, but at the same time, she couldn't ignore it. Alexander was offering her something real, and she couldn't keep holding back. Was she ready to fully give herself to this? Or would she push him away like everyone else? It was late on a Friday night when Maya found herself at a crossroads. Her phone buzzed with a message from Alexander. I need to talk to you. Can you meet me tomorrow? Maya's stomach twisted, the familiar anxiety creeping in. Every time she saw his name on the screen, her heart raced, and she didn't know whether it was excitement or fear. She had promised herself that she would be more open with him, but the idea of facing whatever was coming next made her want to run again. She stared at the message, unsure of what to do. Part of her wanted to tell him to leave her alone, to push him away before it was too late. But she knew that wasn't fair to him, and it wasn't fair to herself. What did Alexander need to say? And why did it feel like it was going to change everything? Maya sat down on the couch, letting the phone slip from her hands. The silence in her apartment was suffocating, and for a moment, she just sat there, thinking. She wasn't sure what she was looking for. Some kind of sign, maybe. She had been so careful for so long, building walls around herself to protect her heart. But now, those walls felt like they were closing in on her, and she couldn't decide whether it was worth it to tear them down. The next morning, she found herself standing in front of the coffee shop again, just like before. The familiar scent of roasted coffee beans filled the air, and the soft hum of conversations around her made her feel strangely calm. But as soon as she saw Alexander sitting at the same corner table, the calm shattered. He looked up, his expression unreadable, and she felt her pulse quicken. She walked toward him slowly, almost as if her body knew what was coming even before her mind could catch up. "Hey!" she said softly, sitting down across from him. She could feel the weight of the moment pressing down on them both. "Hey," he replied, his voice gentle, but there was an edge of something else in it, something that made Maya's heart skip a beat. "I'm glad you came." She nodded, her mouth dry. There was a pause before she spoke again. "You said you needed to talk," she said, her voice steady, though her hands were clenched tightly in her lap. "What's going on, Alexander?" He leaned forward slightly, his eyes never leaving hers. "I know we've had our ups and downs, Maya, and I know I've made mistakes, but I want to make things right. I want to show you that I'm serious about us. And I think we both need to take a step forward. Together." Maya's chest tightened. His words were so simple, but they felt like a promise, and promises scared her more than anything. What did he mean by taking a step forward? Was this really it? Or was it just another mistake waiting to happen? "I'm not asking for everything right away," Alexander continued, his voice low and sincere. "I just want to see where this can go, to take it one step at a time. But I need to know that you're with me, Maya, that you're willing to take that chance." Maya felt her heart thud in her chest. She wanted to say something, anything, but the words didn't come. All she could do was sit there, frozen, listening to him speak as if this was the most important moment of his life. She had been afraid of this moment for so long, the moment when she would have to choose between playing it safe or risking it all for something she wasn't sure she could control. Could she trust him enough to take the risk? Or would she keep playing it safe, alone? "I've never wanted to hurt you, Maya," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "But I need to be honest with you. I care about you more than I've cared about anyone in a long time. I don't want to lose you." Maya looked at him, really looked at him, and for the first time she saw the vulnerability in his eyes. He wasn't just some billionaire playboy trying to get his way. He was someone who was willing to take a chance on her, on them, and that scared her more than anything. "I'm scared too," she admitted, her voice trembling just slightly. "I don't know how to do this. I don't know if I'm ready for everything that comes with us." Alexander reached across the table, his hand hovering near hers. "I'm not asking you to be ready. I'm asking you to try, to trust me, Maya. And if you can't, that's okay. But I won't stop trying." The silence that followed was thick, but this time, it didn't feel suffocating. It felt like an opening, like a chance to finally take a breath and let herself believe in something again. Was this the moment that everything changed? Could she finally believe in a future with him? "I don't know what the future holds," Maya said softly, her fingers brushing against his. "But I'm willing to find out. With you." Alexander's smile was small, but it was the most genuine smile she had ever seen. The fear was still there, but for the first time it didn't feel like it was standing in the way. They were both scared. They both had doubts. But together they were willing to take that step forward. And that, Maya thought, was enough for now. It had been a few weeks since that conversation in the coffee shop. Since then, Maya and Alexander had taken things one day at a time, one step at a time. And though the fear still lingered in Maya's chest, it wasn't as heavy as it once had been. Slowly, the walls she'd built around herself began to come down. Each time they saw each other, each time they talked, she felt more and more like she could trust him. Maya didn't know what the future held for them, but she knew this. Whatever it was, she wanted to find out with him by her side. Was she ready to face the future together? Could their love survive the challenges ahead? It was a Sunday afternoon when they found themselves sitting in the park, the sun just starting to set behind the trees. The world around them was quiet, peaceful. It felt like the calm after the storm, like they were finally in sync with each other. Alexander had his arm around her shoulders, and for the first time in a long time, Maya felt like she was exactly where she was meant to be. "I'm glad you decided to trust me," Alexander said softly, his words almost drowned out by the rustling of the leaves. "I know it wasn't easy. I know how hard it was for you to take that first step." Maya smiled up at him, feeling the warmth of his hand on hers. "I'm glad I did too," she replied, her voice steady. "It wasn't easy, but nothing worth having ever is. And I think I've spent too much time being afraid of what could go wrong. I want to focus on what could go right. Was this the moment everything changed? Had they both finally found their way to each other? Alexander leaned in, his forehead resting against hers. "And what's right for you, Maya?" he asked, his voice low and sincere. She took a deep breath, looking into his eyes. For the first time in what felt like forever, she felt completely at peace. She wasn't rushing to find answers or forcing herself to have it all figured out. She was here in this moment with him, and that was enough. "I don't know what the future holds, but I know I want you in it," she said, her voice barely a whisper. "For the first time, I'm not afraid to find out. Could it really be this simple? Was love enough to carry them through whatever came next?" The rest of the afternoon passed in a comfortable silence, just the two of them walking hand in hand, talking about anything and everything. There were still uncertainties in Maya's mind, still little pieces of her heart that weren't fully healed. But she realized something. Love didn't mean everything had to be perfect. It just meant choosing to be with someone despite the imperfections. As the sun dipped below the horizon, they sat down on a bench, their bodies leaning into each other as they watched the sky turn pink and orange. Maya rested her head on Alexander's shoulder, feeling his steady heartbeat beneath her cheek. "I don't know how to thank you," Maya murmured, her voice soft but filled with emotion. "You've been patient with me, more patient than anyone has ever been. And I'm really starting to believe in us." Alexander smiled, his fingers gently brushing through her hair. "You don't have to thank me," he replied. "We're in this together. We'll figure it out." Was this the beginning of something beautiful? Could love really heal all the wounds? Maya closed her eyes, letting the peaceful moment wash over her. It felt like a turning point, like they had crossed some invisible line and were now walking forward together. There was no fear, no doubt in her heart anymore. Just him, just them. And that felt like enough. She knew their journey wouldn't be perfect. They would still face challenges, still have moments of doubt and fear, but they would face them together. And that was the most important thing. Was this the real beginning of their love story? Could this be the life they were meant to have? As they stood up to leave the park, Alexander took her hand in his, holding it a little tighter than before. They walked side by side, no longer afraid of what the future held. And in that moment, Maya realized that love wasn't about avoiding the pain or the risk. It was about choosing to be vulnerable, to take that leap, even when you weren't sure where you'd land. But with him by her side, Maya knew she would land exactly where she was meant to be. Thank you for watching this story to the end. If you enjoyed this story, you will surely love the next one. It's as crazier and more intriguing as you can ever imagine. So do check it out. Click on the image showing on your screen right now to watch the next one.